Moving on to problem 6.2, we would have a scenario in the following numerical values are given. As you can see from the given table, autonomous consumption is equal to 50, marginal propensity to consume is 0.8, tax is defined to be 100, investment is defined to be 50, and government expenditure is 100. So you are asked to calculate what is the level of income in a basic scenario. How large is the budget deficit? Construct a table which contains the income, components of demand, consumption, investment, government spending, and the budget deficit. So to do so, I have already constructed the table, and we would look at scenario A, or the basic scenario, and we would work our way through the corresponding scenarios. As you remember, in our exercise 6.1, we have defined equilibrium condition where we say our income can be defined within this formula, within this framework. From our table, which we have seen, we can replace all the numbers. So we would have 1 over 1 minus C1 is given as 0.8. CO is given as 50 from our table. C1 is again 0.8 multiplied by tax 100 plus investment is considered to be 50 and government expenditure is 100. So this is altogether calculated 1 over 0.2, 50 minus 80 plus 50 plus 100. And if you make your own calculations over there, you would reach a value of y is equal to 600 in a basic scenario. The next item that we are asked to calculate is consumption. Consumption, as we have seen in the previous videos, is autonomous consumption, CO, which is non-dependent on the disposable income, plus marginal propensity to consume multiplied by our disposable income, which is given by y minus t, or income minus taxes. So if we put all the numerical values, our autonomous consumption is 50, marginal propensity to consume is 0.8, our income, which we have got from the first calculation, is 600, our tax is already given to us as 100, and we would have a total value of consumption to be 450. So the level of income in this scenario A, is 600 monetary units. The level of consumption in this scenario is 450 units. And what is the level of government budget deficit? So budget deficit, as we have defined it, is the difference between government expenditure and tax. And in this case, we had a government expenditure of 100 minus taxes of 100, which would be an amount of 0. So I would shift our view to the initial table that I have constructed, and I would fill out the values that we just secured. So our income would be 600 monetary units, consumption would be 450 monetary units, investment is initially given as 50, government expenditure is 100, and our government budget deficit, we have seen that it would be 0. So now we have a second scenario, or scenario B, which is given to us in the table, and the exogenous shock which occurred in scenario B would decrease our autonomous consumption by 40 units. So this is to say our initial autonomous consumption was 50 units, but now it is 10 units. So this is again to say the DCO is minus 40. What is the level of income now? Enter the situation in the table. So we would follow the normal calculation procedure, and we would enter the values in the table as scenario B. You may remember that we have also this formula, which is the equilibrium condition defined, and we keep on using this formula in order to come up with the values that are going to be filled in the table. So here in our case, only the autonomous consumption changed, so we have 0.8 as a marginal propensity to consume, but instead of 50 for autonomous consumption, we have 10 in our case. And the rest of the values would remain the same. Nothing has changed. And our formula would look like this. So if you calculate this with your calculator or with your hand, the final value of income would be 400 monetary units. Again, the next step that we have to do is calculate consumption, which is consumption, autonomous consumption plus marginal propensity multiplied by our disposable income. Here again, we had an autonomous consumption of 50, but it decreased by 40, so we would have 10, and here we would have 0.8. Our disposable income would be 400 minus 100. So again, this calculation would give us a final value of consumption, which would be 250 monetary units. As you can see, when our autonomous consumption decreased by 40 units, or to say DC0 is equal to minus 40 units, our income decreased from 600 to 400 by minus 200 in compared to our scenario A, which we have just seen. Our government budget deficit in this case would not be impacted because both government expenditure and taxes are not impacted with the shock of autonomous consumption. With the values that we have just secured for scenario B, we would fill out our table, and scenario B is to be indicated as the D0, C0 is equal to minus 40 units. And in our scenario B, we had less income, 400, less consumption, 250, investment remains the same, 50, and government expenditure remained 50. And our budget deficit is again 0.